First, though, we want to check in with meteorologist Mike Prangley before getting to our team for a look at our forecast. We're talking about Ian. Mike, I know you like to look ahead and you'd like to be optimistic about things.
I do.
Things are looking good for us overall. Certain flooding,
right.
but overall.
This doesn't mean we go party and ride around. This is a time to stay inside, stay with us today. We've got these nasty winds, but let's compare it to Irma. I don't think we're going to see the storm surge we saw in San Marco, not even close, and St. Augustine as well. I know everybody's on edge with that high tide coming at noon, and what Lou Turner is showing you is, yes, the water rising, but we're not seeing the levels we saw with Irma at this time, so we'll keep checking in with Lou. And then areas of Amelia Island, and we're watching, of course, our friends in southeast Georgia, St. Simons Island. Again, the water levels will be much lower than we saw with previous tropical systems. So we're keeping an optimistic view and staying smart and keeping you updated. That's what it's about. So Robert Spade, I said, can we zoom in on some of these wind gusts? All right, and thank you, Robert, for calling this up. We've had some 43-mile-per-hour wind gusts toward Jacksonville Naval Air Station, and of course Destiny McKeever. She was out in San Marco, and San Marco's looking pretty good, right? By the beautiful lions and the lion statues, the new murals out there. Didn't look like too many problems. So breathing a sigh of relief so far in San Marco, but we still have that high tide coming up in the next 3 to 4 hours, but not expected to be as bad. Wind gusts there about 40 miles per hour. And the big difference this time around is we're not getting that widespread heavy rain like with Irma, where we saw 12 to 20 inches of rain. These areas may end up with less than 2 inches of rain, and that makes a big difference. Okay, we're still going to get this tidal surge and unusually high waters in this area, but I think without that widespread heavy rainfall, that's really helping us out. But that wind we're watching, because that's whipping in the problems with the surge, and I think most of the problems with the surge will be from St. Augustine southward along the coast. That's St. Augustine southward, but again, not as bad as what we've seen, not close to Irma. We take a look at the winds right now. I like this as well. As we look at these wind gusts, Robert, it looks like more out of the north. We're seeing more of a northerly flow in the atmosphere, which is telling us we've got the center of Ian moving offshore, and we want these winds to turn more northerly because that would help lessen the severity of the surge here. So we're looking for those winds to turn from northeast to north and eventually north-northwest as we head into later on this evening before we can really all breathe a sigh of relief. Now, we take a look at the big picture. You see the shaking tower cams there. Orlando live, a lot of wind, a rough time on I-4, and of course we know what happened in southwest Florida. And we'll keep checking on our friends there as well yesterday. But today it's about tropical storm conditions here at home, and we'll continue to track these wind gusts. You see we're tracking the heavy rain from Ian, and the heaviest rain again along the St. Johns County line, mainly from I-95 east, St. Augustine to Palm Coast in Flagler County. Latest track, we've got an update coming in about an hour, a little bit over an hour, and you can see we got 65-mile-per-hour winds with Ian. That's sustained with some higher gusts. That latest advisory at 8 a.m. and it's about 100. We'll call it 105 miles now southeast of St. Augustine as it moves offshore. And the big story and the big difference maker is that track staying about 100 miles or more east of Jacksonville. That's helping us out, keeping the widespread heavy flooding rain a little farther to the south and east over the ocean, which is good news, and keeping that surge much less, a good 2 to 3 feet less than we've seen with like an Irma.
Mike, I want to talk with you briefly because we just heard from Governor Ron DeSantis talking about the rescue efforts that are underway in the barrier islands. Let's talk about the difference in the storm, what we saw in southwest Florida as opposed to what we're dealing with up here on the First Coast.
Yeah, the storm, unfortunately, was a monster as it went into southwest Florida. We're talking about a historic hurricane. That's an area that's been hit with like 16 hurricanes, major hurricanes here in the last 60 years, so a large number. But this one, out of all of those, it was near the top of the list, unfortunately. So I wanted more information. I was listening. I wanted to make sure everybody's safe, but it looks like it's going to take some time before we can check on everybody. That's how bad it was. We had a Category 4, just 2 miles per hour, 2 miles per hour away from a Category 5 hurricane that just hit southwest Florida near the Fort Myers area. So very serious, but what happened is as it moved inland, okay, the land helped tear it apart. It kind of had a slow movement. That slow movement over land helped us because it weakened it, so to speak, And instead of a hurricane conditions here at home, we're ended up with these tropical storm force gusts and these bands of rain, so to speak. So a big difference between what we saw in Southwest Florida and here in Northeast Florida due to the land interaction. And one other thing, if you go outside, it's actually a little cool out. It's that cool, dry air, a cold front came through our area a few days before this hurricane got cranked, and that helped keep the track a little farther south. It helped us, of course, but not our friends down in Southwest Florida.
And Mike, when people look at the cone, when they look at the track, sometimes I think they maybe get confused when they think maybe that's just where the storm is, within that cone. But that's just an idea of where what would have been the eye was. We're still going to see effects, even if it is tracking further east.
Yeah, that's a common misconception, Katie. So the cone is really just all of the forecast errors, so to speak. Those are all the different tracks that the center of the storm can take, but the effects of these storms go far and wide outside the cone. So for instance, today, Lake City may not be seeing much rain. You're saying the cone's way out in the ocean. We're fine. No, well, you're having some very high wind gusts even out toward Columbia County, 40, 50 miles per hour. And of course, along the coast, we've seen gusts near 70 miles per hour. And notice, yeah, Jacksonville Beach is not officially in that cone as well. But that's a great point that you don't look for the cone for impacts. Okay, we're just looking for the cone, just to give you an idea where the center of the storm is. And as we know, these tropical systems many times are several hundred miles wide, and that's why we're going to stay put today and keep people safe.